In this demonstration, I will show you how you can manually create a general ledger budget. So here you can see that my demo company Kronos already has expense budgets, and one for 2020, one for 21. But I would like to create a new sales budget. And notice that by default, each budget has the 2 global dimensions available. And you can add up to 4 additional dimensions, which means that each budget can have a maximum of 6 budget dimensions. So because in a previous demonstration I created an activity dimension, I also will add activity as a 3rd budget dimension, which means that I can now budget by activity. Alright, so my budget is created. Next, I can click on Process and Edit Budget. So now Business Central shows me the budget window. So this is the page in which I will have to enter my budget amount. So let's look at the components of the page. On the General Fast tab, you can see the budget names. I can also change the way the budget is displayed, so I will come back to this in a few moments. You can select whether to budget by month, week, quarter, day, year, and so on. There's a rounding factor that you can enable, and you can also show the column name. Then if you scroll down, there's the Filters Fast tab, where you can see the date filter. There's a GL account filter, a GL account category, and so on. Now, the most important when entering budgets manually is that we try to set the budget page so that we can enter them as efficient as possible. So by setting filters such as View By, for example, date filters, we will try to enter budget amounts as efficient as possible. So for example, in this case, I would like to budget sales. So it's very important that I can focus on my sales accounts. So you can enter, for example, a GL account filter, or you can also use the GL account category. So for example, if I would select income, by default, I now only have the income GL accounts, which I would like to use in my budgets. So that's one of the things that you can do. Then also notice the date filter. The date filter is set to 2019, but I would like to create a budget for 2020. So I will also have to update the date filter, of course. And by doing this, you now see that the columns display the months of the months of 2020. Alright, so now I can already enter my first budget entry, which is basically very easy to do. So you just go to the combination of GL account and period, and you enter the amount. So here I will enter a negative amount because sales is posted as a credit. So for example, minus 1,000. So this is now my first budget entry. So we can go to these budget entries by clicking on the drill down. And here you can see what the budget entry looks like. So you can see the GL account, you can see the date, and if I enlarge this a little bit, you can also see the amount. But notice that we didn't enter any dimension, although we assigned 3 dimensions to our budget. So, and that's of course also very important. If you want to use dimensions in financial reporting, you should also include them in budgets. So this will allow me, for example, to compare my budgets to actuals for my activities, for my customer groups, and so on. Now, how can we enter dimensions in a budget? Well, there are different ways of doing so. And by the way, I can correct my budget entry if I want. So if I click here on Edit List, you see that it's perfectly possible to add dimensions. And so I can add administration, for example, large, and so on. So now my budget entry includes dimensions. All right, but this is more like a correction that I did. So this is not the way that you can enter dimensions very efficiently. So there are better ways to do so. The first thing that I can do is filter on one of the dimensions here on the Filters Fast tab. So there's, for example, the department filter, and if I would like to budget for the sales department, I can select sales, click on OK, and there we go. So everything that I enter now, by default, will get sales as the department dimension value. So if I enter, let's say 2000, and if I show you the budget entry again, you will see that now it automatically includes the sales departments. So that's another thing that we can do to include dimensions in our budgets. But also very interesting is to change the way the budget window is displayed. So now we're looking at GL accounts and periods, but maybe I rather would like to enter a budget by customer group. So now if I click on show as columns, and if I select customer group, okay, you will see that now the customer groups are displayed as columns and not the periods anymore. So this will allow me now to very efficiently enter budget amounts by customer group. Of course, now it's very important that we filter the period that we want to budget. So here we are still looking at the whole year 2020, but if I would like to budget by month, I can change this, for example, to January 1st to January 31st, 2020. So and this means now that if I enter a budget, like here in this field, then maybe also for the medium customer group and so on, these budget entries will get the sales dimension, and then of course also the customer group dimension for which I've entered the budget entry. So that's a way that you can manually create budgets. Now, once you entered a number of these budget amounts manually, you can use a copy function to copy them to, for example, another period. How to do this is explained in the following unit.